Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and thought I'd sit down and do a video for you guys. Just sip my water first. My radio voice going. For those who keep asking, this is just water with Sonic cherry limeade in it. Alright, let me give you guys a forearm shot. Let's get into the topic. I'm going to say something that's going to be very non-dogmatic. In fact, there's going to be people who followed my work for years who might even throw something at the screen at this point. That's okay. Because I do believe there's more than one way to go about things. I think bulks and cuts are very useful. I think every novice lifter should at some point probably do a serious bulk. Let's just be realistic here. Okay, particularly if you're underweight. Okay, particularly if you're underweight. However, people who are not really skinny or underweight, particularly if you've built a base already too, and you're up at a decent body weight, I don't think dedicated bulks and cuts are absolutely required to make continual progress. Now, do I think you need some structured strictness to your diet? Yes, absolutely. I think that is required. But here's the thing that I'm going to go with. I've discussed protein overfeeding. I've discussed data in protein overfeeding studies. And generally speaking, if you eat really, really large amounts of protein, and I mean really large amounts of protein, we're talking once we start getting above 1 gram per pound of body weight, okay? All right? We're getting up there. It's going to tend to push you in the direction of recomposition to some extent, no matter what. What do I mean by that? It means if you're near maintenance, you're going to lose fat easier. Okay. It means it's going to stave off fat gains when you are bulking a little bit. Okay. In some cases, it's going to allow recomp to occur if everything is on point. You know, if the protein is really high, fatigue management's good, sleep is good, training is good. Okay. So what does that mean? That means we may not need to strictly track calories close enough to bulk and cut. In other words, unless you have a major appetite problem, if you are keeping your appetite under control in general, and your goals are generally body composition, and you're not saying, hey, my goal is to maximize muscle growth this year. Okay, as long as your goals are just, I want to always either be improving with my body fat or my muscle. For people who want to stay pretty lean year round, I don't think that we have to bulk and cut. I think you can kind of just play in that recomp realm. Okay? And the reason I say that is that if you end up being at a slight surplus, if you keep, again, if we're forcing down a ton of protein and you're following, relatively good diet, whether it's some sort of, to where you're keeping your saturated fat low or your sugar low, right? Keeping refined foods minimized. You're eating a lot of fiber whole foods, stuff with a lot of thermic effect, but high protein, right? We do see in some cases, even in advanced lifters, even studies in athletes to where they've gained muscle while losing a little bit of fat. It can occur. We see purely lean bulks. So that being said, if everything is dialed in, your training is on point, you're eating well, and the protein's really high, I think you can hover in that recomposition area. It doesn't mean you're always going to recomp, no. But you know that you are probably at least losing a little bit of body fat at all times, or you are probably gaining a little bit of muscle at all times. The thing is, though, when you do this, you can't expect quick changes. That's the issue with it, right? Because you may be drifting back and forth sometimes a little, even week to week, between a small bulk and a small cut. At least your body composition in general is probably always going to be improving a small amount. Okay, and the reason because when you're doing it that way, you're probably not really gaining fat when you are in a small surplus, as long as it's really small. And the protein's high, training's good. So you're always going to see your body fat percentage have a slight downward trickle when you follow this sort of approach. You're just going to refine pretty much, and I think people can do that long term. I think they absolutely can. The difference is it's never going to maximize anything, right? There's no guarantee, hey, you're going to get really, 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 really lean because you're not doing a dedicated cut. you're just probably going to see a general improvement. You're never going to maximize the most strength in one period or muscle because you're not really overfeeding in general. But if someone wanted to just see a general all the time improvement, month after month, year after year, I think it is a viable approach. Like if a person says, hey, a year from now, I'm okay if I'm half a pound heavier and 1% less body fat. I think this sort of approach works. The problem is, again, noobs are going to go, well, that's way too slow. Well, yeah, we're talking about once you're kind of done with your noob gains. But could a noob follow this approach? Yeah, but they're probably going to want, if they're skinny, they're going to want an upward trend on the scale. Which means in a way that's kind of just a slow bulk. Is it possible for a lot of them to recomp a little while doing that? Yeah, it absolutely is. So I think my point here is I don't think that we have to be super strict with this, but I think that people have to have a different mindset when you approach something like this. That you're just living your life and improving your general fitness, your general body composition all the time. And sometimes you're going to have times with that where you're not strictly tracking, you end up under eating a little. You lose more body fat. Maybe don't gain any muscle or a very small amount. And the same thing, it might end up drifting sometimes into a slight weight gain, but it'll probably be all lean. As long as you're not seeing big changes in the scale happening, And I think people can take a casual approach. And I've known many people over the years who do. They more or less stay at pretty similar body weights, and just year after year have gotten better. I used to see it way back in the day. People didn't always strictly track the calories super close. And it's almost where once I get leaner, I may drift into this sort of strategy for myself. I had a pretty successful lean bulk this year. I gained 8 total pounds with no apparent body fat gain. And I start cutting, people are like, wow, you're getting leaner. Now, I know I'm still following a slow, dedicated cut. I do need to get leaner. But then I may adopt this kind of approach. It can be a little more casual. It might be what I end up doing. And just keep refining where I'm at. I think it's fine. As long as people accept that it's slow. You're not going to be like, oh man, I'm hitting PR after PR all the time. Yeah, it's going to be slow PRs, guys. It's just not going to happen, right? Because you're not in a dedicated weight gain phase. So some of that's going to be scaled back a little. And in order to pull something like this off, you really do need to focus on keeping that protein really, really high. In some cases, you might have to focus on keeping the fat really low or doing some sort of fasting protocol or whatever. Right? It's a lot of options available, but the main thing is really, I think the key to making something like this work, when people don't want to track it super dedicated, you really, really have to force down a lot of protein to make it work. And it's completely viable. People have done this sort of stuff for decades successfully. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. Talk to you guys next time.